Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today we start our first of our 31 days of horror for our Halloween reviews to give you some great movies that you can watch during October to get you into that Halloween spirit. And we're going old school, and we're going back to one of the original classics, 1931's Dracula. For the next few days, we're going to cover vampire movies, and if we're going to talk about vampire movies, we need to talk about the king of them all. Now, I know Nosferatu came out first, but this is really, when you think about that classic vampire, that look, it is from the Dracula movies. And this is the original from 1931, the first film of its type that had sound, right? So it wasn't a silent movie. So it was our first talkie, if you will, in that horror genre, and that is considered a classic. And this movie was directed by Todd Browning, great director back in the 1930s, who would make this movie, which at the time was considered the scariest movie ever made. And then just a year later, he would make Freaks, which is so much scarier than Dracula. We'll talk about that at a later date. But just a great prolific director whose career was, again, very much changed after he did his next movie. But a huge influence from when he created Dracula. And we want to, kind of stay spoiler-free. We're going to keep it really simple. Let's just talk about this movie. At the time, again, it was considered terrifying. Today, it's considered more of a masterpiece based on cinematography, based on technical things they could do back then. Some of the different fog effects, the changing into the bat. Things that, again, today look incredibly cheesy, but back in 1931, they were groundbreaking. And this freaked out crowds back then. And there's a couple of things that stand out in this movie. I always talk about the scares, and there are a couple of scares that stand out. I'm going to share just two that I think are pretty spine-chilling. And the goal in this is to keep the reviews to just 2 to 3 minutes long to kind of get you set up to go watch these movies during Halloween and have a great time with them. So I will tell you the first scene that I think that stands out is Dracula standing over Mina's bed. Just kind of that first time you see the Count in that really menacing piece, it just really does stand out, and it is a good, chill-inducing scene. The second scene I would tell you is when Dracula hears the wolves, and he says, "Listen to them, the children of the night." And again, you just have this oneness with Dracula, and at the time, perceived evil, right? The bats, the wolves, all that stuff, kind of the cliche haunted house stuff today, but that was what it was back then. So just for this movie, I think, take advantage of this movie for Todd Browning's direction, Bela Lugosi's acting, the great set pieces, the atmosphere, and really just checking out to see what a scary movie was back in 1931. So a movie that probably your great-grandparents might have seen in the theater. It's just incredible. So that's our first review. Thank you for checking out the channel. Our next review will be Lost Boys. I look forward to sharing that with you. Stay scary.